The communication array in Geneva started beeping at exactly 14:47 on a Tuesday afternoon. The sound was different from the usual signals. This one came from deep space, from somewhere far beyond Earth's solar system. The technicians on duty looked at each other with worried faces. They had been trained for this moment, but hoping it would never come. Sarah Chen was in her office when the call came through. She was the commander of Earth's United Defense Command, a position that sounded more important than it actually was. At least that's what the rest of the galaxy thought. She picked up the phone and listened to the technician's nervous voice. "Commander, we have an incoming message from the Galactic Council. It's marked as urgent and official." Sarah felt her stomach tighten, but her face remained calm. She had learned a long time ago not to show fear. "Route it to the main conference room. Get all the chiefs there in 10 minutes. She hung up and took a deep breath. Whatever this message was, it wasn't going to be good news. The conference room filled up quickly. General Williams from the Air Force arrived first, his gray hair still wet from a shower. Admiral Rodriguez from the Navy came next, followed by the others. They all knew that urgent messages from the Galactic Council were never friendly visits or casual hellos. The Council didn't waste time on pleasantries with species they considered beneath them. The holographic display flickered to life in the center of the room. An alien face appeared, tall and thin with purple skin and 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern. This was Ambassador Thexalon of the Viridian Collective, one of the most powerful species in the Council. His voice came through the speakers, translated into English by the computer systems. "Greetings to the humans of planet Earth. I am Ambassador Thexalon, speaking on behalf of the Galactic Council. We have observed your species for the past 50 years since first contact. We have watched your expansion into your local space. We have monitored your military developments, and we have reached a decision." Sarah leaned forward in her chair. Around the table, the other officers sat perfectly still. They all knew what was coming, but they needed to hear it said out loud. The ambassador continued, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence. "The Galactic Council has determined that humanity poses a potential threat to galactic peace and stability. Your species has shown aggressive tendencies. You have built weapons that exceed the acceptable limits for developing civilizations. You have colonized systems without proper authorization from the Council. This cannot continue." There it was, the threat they had been expecting for years. Sarah watched the alien's face carefully, reading the subtle movements that the translation software couldn't capture. Thexalon believed every word he was saying. He genuinely thought Earth was dangerous and needed to be controlled. Therefore, the Council has issued the following ultimatum. You have 72 standard cycles, which equals approximately 74 of your Earth days, to comply with our demands. First, you will dismantle all military vessels not approved by Council specifications. Second, you will submit to Council oversight of all your colonies and outposts. Third, you will accept Council observers in all your government and military facilities. Fourth, you will limit your future expansion to systems approved by the Council. The ambassador paused, and when he spoke again, his voice was colder. If you refuse to comply, or if you attempt to resist, the Council will implement corrective measures. A fleet of 300 warships is already en route to your solar system. They will arrive in 72 cycles. We suggest you use this time wisely. The Council has spoken. The holographic display went dark. For a long moment, nobody in the room spoke. Then General Williams slammed his fist on the table. "Those arrogant bastards! They actually think they can just show up and tell us what to do." "They don't just think it," Admiral Rodriguez said quietly. "They've done it to dozens of other species. The Terrans, the Kelvorians, the Morthan Collective. Every species that didn't submit got wiped out or enslaved." Sarah held up her hand for silence. "Let's focus on what we know. 300 ships, 72 cycles. They're giving us time because they think we'll surrender. They think we'll see their fleet coming and realize we can't win." Can we win? Someone asked. Sarah looked around the table at the faces of Earth's military leadership. These men and women had fought in the First Contact Wars. They had faced the Krothi invasion when Earth was still new to galactic politics. They had learned hard lessons about survival in a galaxy that didn't care about fairness or justice. That depends, Sarah said slowly, on what they think winning looks like. She stood up and walked to the holographic display controls. With a few touches, she brought up a star map of the solar system. Red dots appeared throughout the system, hundreds of them. They think they know what we have. They think they've been watching us, but they've only seen what we wanted them to see. The room suddenly felt different. The anger and worry started to change into something else, something that looked almost like anticipation. General Williams leaned forward. "You're saying we've been planning for this?" "Not planning for it," Sarah corrected. "Preparing for it. There's a difference. We knew that eventually the Council would try to bring us to heel. Every independent species faces this choice: submit or fight. We decided a long time ago that Earth doesn't submit." She touched the display again, and the red dots multiplied. Thousands of them now, scattered throughout the entire solar system. "These are our actual military assets, not the ones on the public records, not the ones their spies know about. These are the ships and platforms we've been building in the Kuiper Belt, the weapons arrays on the dark side of the moon, the defense stations hidden in the asteroid belt. The Council thinks we're weak. They think we're primitives playing at being a spacefaring civilization." "So what do we do?" Admiral Rodriguez asked. "Hit them before they reach Earth? Take out their fleet in deep space?" Sarah shook her head. "No, we do something they won't expect, something that will change everything." She looked at her communications officer. "I need you to draft a response to the Council. Make it official. Use all the proper diplomatic language." "What should it say, Commander?" Sarah smiled then, and it wasn't a friendly smile. It was the smile of someone who had just been given exactly what they needed. "Thank them. Thank them for the advance notice. Thank them for giving us time to prepare. Thank them for their concern about our military development. Be polite. Be grateful. Be extremely specific about how much we appreciate their ultimatum." The room went silent again. Then slowly, understanding began to dawn on the faces around the table. General Williams started to grin. Admiral Rodriguez actually laughed. "You're going to confuse the hell out of them," Williams said. "More than that," Sarah replied. "I'm going to make them curious. Curious enough to come all the way to Earth to see what we're actually thanking them for. And when they get here, when their fleet is in our solar system, surrounded by everything we've built." She touched the display one more time, and the thousands of red dots pulsed in unison. "We're going to give them a demonstration they'll never forget." The communications officer was already typing, his fingers flying across the keyboard. "How polite should I be, Commander?" "Extremely polite," Sarah said. "Friendly, welcoming. Make them think we're naive. Make them think we don't understand what a threat looks like. And make absolutely sure they know we're preparing something. Let them wonder what it is." As the meeting broke up and the officers filed out to begin preparations, Sarah stood alone in the conference room, looking at the star map. 72 cycles. It was more time than they needed, but she'd use every single day of it. The Galactic Council had made a mistake. They had given Earth advance warning, time to prepare, and a reason to reveal everything they had been hiding. Sometimes, Sarah thought, the best gift your enemy can give you is underestimating you. And sometimes, the best response to a threat is gratitude. After all, how do you fight an enemy who thanks you for declaring war? She touched the display one last time, zooming out to show the approaching Council fleet. They were still weeks away, burning through deep space at maximum speed, confident in their superiority. They had no idea what was waiting for them. They had no idea that Earth had been ready for this moment for 50 years. "Thank you, Ambassador Thexelon," Sarah whispered to the empty room. Thank you for giving us exactly what we needed. Ambassador Thexelon was reviewing trade reports when the message from Earth arrived. His assistant brought it to him on a data tablet, and he expected to find either angry defiance or fearful begging. In his 300 years of diplomatic service, he had received both responses many times. Lesser species always reacted the same way when faced with council authority. He opened the message and began to read. Then he stopped. He read it again, more slowly this time. His 4 eyes blinked in confusion, each one moving independently as his brain tried to process what he was seeing. "This cannot be correct," he said out loud. "Run a translation check. Perhaps the computers made an error." His assistant took the tablet and checked the translation logs. "No error, Ambassador. The message is in perfect galactic standard, and the English original matches exactly. This is what they sent." Thexelon read the message a third time. The humans were thanking him. They were expressing gratitude for the ultimatum. They said they appreciated the advance notice of the fleet's arrival. They were grateful for the 72 cycles to prepare what they called an appropriate welcome. They thanked the Council for its concern about Earth's military development and promised the matter would be addressed comprehensively. But it was the attached documents that truly confused him. The humans had sent detailed instructions for the Council fleet, docking procedures, suggested orbital paths that they called secure parking orbits. There was even a document labeled Visitor's Guide to Earth that included tourist attractions, cultural sites, and restaurant recommendations. And then, at the end, there was a cheerful note inviting the Council delegates to observe what Earth called a cultural exchange exercise, where humanity would demonstrate the current state of our military capabilities. They sounded excited about it, like children showing off a new toy. Thexelon forwarded the message to Admiral Corex, the military commander of the Council fleet. Within an hour, he received a response. It was a video call, and the Admiral's face filled his screen. Corex was a Gentari, a species bred for warfare. His scales were dark red, and his eyes glowed with a fierce intelligence. "I read their message," Corex growled. "They're fools. They think being polite will save them." "Perhaps," Thexelon said carefully, "but the wording is strange. They sound almost pleased that we're coming." "Of course they're pleased," Corex snorted. "They're trying to buy goodwill before they surrender. It's pathetic. Many species do this. They smile and bow and hope we'll be merciful. We will accept their surrender, dismantle their military, and move on to the next problem. This is routine." Texelon wanted to believe that. It made sense. It fit the pattern they had seen dozens of times before. But something nagged at him. He pulled up Earth's file on his computer and started reading through the history again. Humans had made first contact 50 years ago when a Krothi raiding fleet attacked one of their early colony ships. The humans should have been destroyed easily. Instead, they had fought back with a ferocity that surprised everyone. They adapted quickly, learned from every battle, and eventually pushed the Krothi out of their space entirely. Since then, Earth had been quiet, focusing on building colonies and trading peacefully. But the intelligence reports told a different story if you looked carefully. Human ships were seen in strange places. Human traders asked too many questions. Human diplomats were suspiciously well-informed about council politics. And now, this response. This strange, grateful, welcoming response. Thexelon sent a message to Intelligence Director Pelmoth. She was a Shikari, a species known for their careful thinking and attention to detail. If anyone would see what he was seeing, it would be her. Her reply came back within hours. She requested a secure conference, and they met in a virtual space where no one could intercept their conversation. "I read the human message," Pelmoth said without greeting. Her 6 arms moved in agitation. "I don't like it." "You think it's a trap?" "I think it's something. The humans don't communicate like other species. I studied them during the first contact wars. They lie differently than we do. They say one thing and mean another. They hide meanings inside meanings. This message, she paused, her arms gesturing in complex patterns that indicated deep concern. This message is too friendly, too helpful. They're showing us exactly where to go, exactly where to position our ships. Why? Admiral Corax thinks they're trying to buy mercy with politeness. Admiral Corax is a warrior, Pelmoth said flatly. Warriors see simple solutions. This is not simple. Think about it. They say they'll demonstrate their military capabilities for us. Why would a species about to surrender show us their weapons? Perhaps they're bluffing, trying to look stronger than they are. Perhaps, or perhaps they actually want us to see what they have. Perhaps they want us to come to their system and watch them. But why? They talked for another hour, going through every possibility. In the end, Pelmoth agreed to flag the message as a potential tactical concern. She would send her analysis to the Council's military command with a recommendation for caution. But Thexalon knew it wouldn't matter. The fleet was already on its way, and nothing short of a direct order from the Council itself would turn them back. The message from Earth spread through the Council fleet like wildfire. Officers read it and laughed. Crew members made jokes about the naive humans who thought they could win favor with friendliness. Some suggested they should actually visit the tourist sites Earth had recommended. Maybe Earth would be a pleasant posting after the occupation. Only a few of the older officers, the ones who had fought in real wars against dangerous enemies, felt the same unease that Pelmoth had expressed. They read the message carefully, looking for hidden meanings. They noted the precise coordinates Earth had provided. They wondered why a species facing destruction would be so organized and prepared. Lieutenant Kresh, a young Viridian officer on Admiral Corax's flagship, brought his concerns to his captain. Sir, I've been analyzing the orbital paths Earth suggested for us. They're very specific. They put us in positions where we'd be spread out across the system. Doesn't that seem strange? His captain, an older warrior named Vexal, looked at the coordinates. It's standard procedure for large fleets visiting a system. Prevents collisions, reduces the strain on any single orbital zone. The humans are just being efficient. But sir, if we're spread out, we're also more vulnerable. If they attacked— They won't attack, Vexal interrupted. They can't. Our intelligence reports show they have maybe 200 military vessels, mostly small patrol craft and outdated frigates. We have 300 warships, all equipped with the latest weapons and shields. They know they can't win. This is surrender with extra steps. Kresh wanted to argue, but he was too junior to push back against his captain's certainty. He filed his concerns in a report that was added to the growing pile of similar reports from other worried officers. All of them were marked as low priority and filed away. Meanwhile, Earth's message continued to generate confusion throughout the Council. Some ambassadors praised the humans for their wisdom in accepting reality. Others were suspicious of the friendly tone. A few suggested sending additional ships, just in case. But the majority agreed with Admiral Corax's assessment. This was a surrender dressed up in diplomatic language. What none of them realized was that Earth's message had accomplished exactly what Sarah Chen intended. It had made the Council curious. It had made them wonder. It had planted questions in their minds that they couldn't quite answer. And most importantly, it had convinced them to come all the way to Earth's solar system to see what the humans were preparing. On a secure channel, Admiral Corax sent a message to his fleet commanders. The humans have accepted their defeat. We will arrive in 68 cycles. Follow the orbital paths they suggested. It will make the occupation simpler if they're already cooperating. Prepare for standard peacekeeping operations. Weapons ready, but we won't need them. This will be the easiest conquest in Council history. Back on Earth, Sarah Chen received a report that the Council had acknowledged their message. The fleet was still coming. They were following the suggested approach vectors. Everything was proceeding exactly as planned. They bought it, General Williams said, reading over her shoulder. They actually think we're surrendering. They think what they want to think, Sarah replied. They've conquered so many species that they can't imagine one that wouldn't be afraid of them. They see politeness as weakness. They see organization as capitulation. They don't understand that we're not being nice because we're scared. We're being nice because we're giving them a choice. A choice? Yes. They can arrive at our home system, watch our demonstration, and leave peacefully with a new understanding of who Earth is. Or, she pulled up the tactical display showing the thousands of hidden weapons platforms throughout the solar system. Or they can learn the hard way. Either option works for us. And if they choose to fight? Sarah was quiet for a moment, thinking about the 50 years of preparation, the secret shipyards, the weapons systems that push the boundaries of physics, the training exercises that had been dismissed as paranoid over-preparation. Then they'll learn why you should never, ever threaten humanity on our home ground. But I'm hoping they're smart enough to choose the peaceful option. She pulled up the countdown timer. 68 cycles left. Just over 70 days. Every hour of every day would be used to prepare the demonstration of a lifetime. The Council wanted to see Earth's military capabilities? Fine. Earth would show them everything. Every ship, every weapon, every tactical innovation they had developed in secret. And when it was over, the entire galaxy would know that Earth was nobody's subject. They would know that humanity didn't bow to threats. They would know that the polite, grateful message wasn't surrender. It was an invitation to understand reality. Send a follow-up message, Sarah said. Thank them for confirming they'll arrive on schedule. Tell them we're excited to show them what we've prepared, and remind them to bring recording equipment. We want the whole galaxy to see this. Her communications officer grinned as he started typing. Outside the window, Earth continued its peaceful rotation, unaware of the massive fleet burning toward it through deep space. But beneath the surface, in hidden bases and secret facilities, humanity prepared to reveal what they really were. Not victims, not subordinates, not another species to be conquered and controlled, but equals who had been waiting patiently for someone to give them an excuse to prove it. And the Galactic Council had just given them that excuse, wrapped up in an ultimatum and delivered with absolute confidence. Sarah smiled. Sometimes the best way to win a war was to say, "Thank you." The Council fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system exactly on schedule. 300 warships materialized in the darkness of space, their engines glowing like new stars. On the bridge of the flagship Eternal Authority, Admiral Corax watched his displays light up with data about the system ahead. Everything appeared normal. The sun burned at the center, planets orbited in their expected paths. There were the usual communications satellites, shipping beacons, and navigation markers that any civilized system would have. And just as Earth had promised, there were clearly marked beacons indicating the secure parking orbits for the fleet. "It's almost too easy," Corax muttered. His tactical officer nodded agreement. What the Admiral didn't know was that at the moment his fleet arrived, every sensor platform in the solar system locked onto his ships. Hidden observation posts in the asteroid belt began recording. Listening stations on the dark side of Neptune started analyzing communication signals. Quantum computers deep beneath Earth's surface began processing every piece of data, cataloging every ship, every weapon signature, every shield frequency. Lieutenant Kresh stood at his station on the flagship, monitoring the sensor displays. Something felt wrong, but he couldn't identify what. The system looked peaceful enough. Traffic moved normally between Earth and its colonies. Mining ships worked the asteroid belt. Everything seemed routine. Except that there were too many mining ships, and they were all identical. And their engine signatures were stronger than civilian vessels should have. Kresh marked them on his display but didn't say anything. His captain had already dismissed his concerns once. The fleet began its week-long journey from the edge of the system to Earth orbit. It was standard procedure. Ships couldn't safely jump directly to a planet. They had to approach slowly, giving everyone time to prepare and preventing accidents. As they traveled, more and more details about Earth's system became visible. On the second day they passed Jupiter, sensors detected mining operations on several moons. Again, nothing unusual, except that the mining stations seemed to have unusually powerful power generators, and they were positioned in a pattern that, if Kresh squinted at his display just right, looked almost like strategic defensive positions. He mentioned it to his captain. "Sir, those mining stations around Jupiter, the spacing is very regular, almost military." Captain Vexall glanced at the display. "Humans like organization. Don't see conspiracies where there aren't any, Lieutenant." On the third day, they detected the first ship that was definitely military. It was a human destroyer, old design, probably 30 years outdated. It maintained a respectful distance and made no aggressive moves. Its captain sent a polite message welcoming the Council fleet and offering navigation assistance if needed. "See," Admiral Corex said to his officers, "they're cooperating. They know they can't fight us, so they're being helpful. This is exactly how a smart species behaves when faced with superior force." But Intelligence Officer Thelnor wasn't so sure. She had been studying the human ship carefully. Its engines were old, yes. Its hull design was outdated, but its sensor array was brand new, top-of-the-line technology. Why would a species put expensive sensors on an old ship? Unless they were using that ship to gather intelligence on the Council fleet. Unless the old destroyer was actually a mobile observation platform, recording everything about the Council's approach. Felnor filed her report, but like the others, it was marked as low priority. The fleet continued its approach. On Earth, Sarah Chen stood in the command center watching the Council fleet's progress. Banks of screens showed every angle, every ship, every communication. The quantum computers had already cracked the Council's basic encryption. Earth knew more about the Council fleet than the Council knew about itself. "They're following the suggested paths exactly," her tactical officer reported. "They'll be in position in 4 days." "Good," Sarah said. "Begin phase 2 of the preparations. I want everything ready for the demonstration. And send another message to Admiral Corex. Thank him for his punctuality and remind him that the cultural exchange exercise begins as soon as his fleet reaches Earth orbit." The message was sent. Admiral Corex read it and laughed. "Cultural exchange exercise. They're calling their surrender a cultural exchange. I almost admire their creativity." On the 5th day, the Council fleet passed the asteroid belt. This time, even Captain Vexall noticed something odd. There were thousands of objects in the belt, which was normal, but too many of them had power signatures. Too many of them were oriented toward the fleet's path. When he mentioned it to Admiral Corex, the Admiral just shrugged. "They probably have automated defense satellites, standard protection against pirates and raiders. They're no threat to us." What the Admiral didn't realize was that every single one of those automated defense satellites was actually a weapons platform. And they weren't designed to fight pirates. They were designed to fight exactly what was coming, a massive military fleet that thought it was invincible. Lieutenant Kresh watched the asteroid belt fall behind them and felt his anxiety growing. He pulled up the tactical map and started marking everything that seemed unusual. The mining ships that followed the fleet at a distance, the orbital stations with too much power, the satellites positioned at perfect intervals, the patrol ships that seemed to be everywhere at once. When he looked at the map with all his marks displayed, he saw a pattern. The Council fleet wasn't approaching Earth. Earth was surrounding the Council fleet. Every step of the journey, humanity had been moving pieces into position. It wasn't an approach, it was an encirclement. He brought his concerns to Captain Vexall one more time. "Sir, please look at this map. The humans have been positioning assets throughout our approach. If they wanted to—" "They won't," Vexall said firmly. "Lieutenant, I've been in the Council military for 80 years. I've seen dozens of species surrender. This is what it looks like. They put on a show of strength to save pride, then they cooperate. The humans are following the script perfectly. Stop worrying. On the sixth day, Earth came into view. It was a beautiful planet, blue and white and green, spinning peacefully in the darkness. The Council fleet began moving into the orbital positions Earth had suggested. They spread out around the planet in a wide formation, each ship taking its designated spot. Sarah Chen watched them settle into position and allowed herself a small smile. "They're exactly where we want them," she said quietly. General Williams stood beside her, looking at the same display. "Surrounded, and they don't even know it," he said. "They know something's wrong," Sarah corrected. "Some of their officers have been filing reports, but their leadership is too confident to listen. They think they know how this story ends." Do they? Not even close. On the flagship, Admiral Corex prepared his speech. Tomorrow he would address the human leadership. He would accept their surrender gracefully, show them mercy, and begin the process of integrating Earth into the Council's systems. It would be a routine operation. He had done it before. He called Ambassador Thexelon to coordinate the diplomatic aspects. The ambassador's face appeared on the screen, and Corex was surprised to see that Thexelon looked worried. "What troubles you, Ambassador?" "I spoke again with Intelligence Director Pelmoth," Thexelon said. "She is very concerned about the humans' behavior. She thinks we're missing something important." "What could we be missing?" "Our sensors show they have approximately 250 military vessels in their system. We have 300. We outnumber them, and our technology is superior. What could they possibly do?" "That's just it," Thexelon said slowly. "Why do they look so calm? I've been watching the human news broadcasts. They're not panicking. They're not protesting. They're acting like everything is normal, like they have a massive military fleet in orbit every day." Corex waved dismissively. "They're probably keeping the public calm. Good leadership does that." But after the call ended, Corex found himself staring at his displays, looking at the planet below. The ambassador had a point. The humans were too calm, too organized, too prepared. He pulled up the intelligence reports that had been filed during the approach. There were dozens of them. Concerns about unusual ship positions, questions about suspiciously powerful mining equipment, observations about sensor arrays that seemed too advanced, all filed by junior officers, all dismissed by their superiors. Corex read through them carefully, and a cold feeling settled in his stomach. Individually, each report seemed paranoid, but together they painted a picture. The humans hadn't just accepted the Council's arrival, they had prepared for it. They had positioned assets. They had guided the fleet exactly where they wanted it. He called his tactical officer. "Run a complete scan of the system. I want to know every ship, every station, every satellite. Get me real numbers, not estimates." The scan took 2 hours. When the results came back, the tactical officer's face was pale. "Admiral, there are anomalies everywhere. Those mining ships have military-grade engines. The orbital stations have power signatures consistent with weapon systems. The satellites in the asteroid belt are networked together like a coordinated defense grid. And there are objects in the outer system that we can't identify at all." "How many military vessels do they actually have?" The tactical officer swallowed hard. "At least 2,000, sir. Possibly more. Most of them were classified as civilian on our initial scans, but the detailed analysis shows they're warships." The cold feeling in Corex's stomach turned to ice. 2,000 ships? "Yes, sir, and that's just what we can see. There could be more hiding in the outer system or on the dark sides of the planets." Corex stood up and walked to the window of his bridge. Below him, Earth rotated peacefully. Above him, his fleet of 300 ships spread out in perfect formation, exactly where the humans had told them to go. And all around them, hidden in plain sight, was a military force 7 times their size. He thought about the message Earth had sent, the one thanking the Council for the advance warning, the one expressing gratitude for the opportunity to prepare. the one inviting them to a cultural exchange exercise where humanity would demonstrate their military capabilities. They weren't surrendering, Korex said out loud. They were never surrendering. Sir? His tactical officer asked. Korex turned to face his bridge crew. For the first time in his long military career, he felt genuinely afraid. The humans thanked us for coming. They invited us here. They positioned us exactly where they wanted us. This isn't a surrender. This is a demonstration, and we're not the audience. He paused, looking back at the planet. We're the props. Lieutenant Kresh, who had been right all along, said quietly, "What do we do, Admiral?" Korex was silent for a long moment. Then he made a decision. Send a message to Earth's Defense Command. Tell them we accept their invitation to observe their cultural exchange exercise, and pray to every god in the galaxy that they're willing to let us leave when it's over. Below them, on Earth, Sarah Chen received the message and smiled. They're starting to understand, she said. Good. That means they might actually learn something tomorrow. The countdown timer reached 0. The demonstration was about to begin. The morning started quietly. Admiral Korex hadn't slept well. He kept thinking about the numbers. 2,000 human ships versus his 300. But numbers weren't everything. The Council had better technology, better training, and centuries of military experience. If the humans tried anything, his fleet could still fight their way out. At least, that's what he told himself. At 0800 Earth Standard Time, a message came through from Earth's United Defense Command. It was Commander Sarah Chen herself, her face appearing on every screen in the Council fleet. She looked calm and professional, like someone about to give a business presentation. Good morning, Admiral Korex and honored representatives of the Galactic Council. Thank you again for accepting our invitation to observe Earth's military capabilities. We've prepared a comprehensive demonstration that we believe will address all of your concerns about our defensive systems. The exercise will begin in 30 minutes. Please ensure your recording equipment is active. We want you to have clear documentation of everything you see today. The message ended. Korex looked at his officers. Battle stations, shields at maximum. If anything goes wrong, we jump out immediately. Sir, jumping from this deep in a gravity well is dangerous, his navigation officer warned. Not as dangerous as staying if this goes bad. Prepare emergency jump coordinates. Throughout the Council fleet, ships went to high alert. Weapons were charged, but not targeted. Shields powered up. Escape routes were calculated. The humans had said this was a demonstration, but Korex wasn't taking chances. At exactly 0830, space around Earth lit up like a new sun being born. It started in the Kuiper Belt, the dark region at the edge of the solar system. What the Council had thought were civilian mining vessels suddenly activated military-grade engines. Hundreds of ships that had been dismissed as commercial traffic revealed themselves as warships. They moved in perfect formation, their coordination so precise it looked like a single organism instead of individual vessels. Visual confirmation, the tactical officer said, his voice shaking. 473 warships in the outer system moving to attack positions. Attack positions against what? Korex demanded. Against us, sir. But the ships didn't attack. They just moved into position, demonstrating their speed and coordination. They performed maneuvers that should have been impossible. Turns too tight, accelerations too fast, formations too complex. The Council officers watched in stunned silence as the human fleet danced through space like it was defying physics. Then came the second phase. Around Jupiter's moons, what had been labeled as mining stations activated. Massive weapon batteries emerged from camouflage. Point defense systems came online. The tactical displays showed them all networked together into a coordinated defense grid that could cover millions of cubic kilometers of space. How did we miss this? Someone whispered. They wanted us to miss it, Korex answered grimly. The demonstration continued. In the asteroid belt, thousands of satellites that had been dismissed as automated traffic control suddenly revealed themselves as weapons platforms. Each one was small, barely larger than a fighter craft, but there were so many of them, and they were all connected, all talking to each other, all moving in synchronized patterns. Lieutenant Kresh ran calculations on his station. Sir, if those platforms fired simultaneously, they could generate a targeting solution for every ship in our fleet with redundancy. We couldn't evade. There's no gap in their coverage. On Earth, Sarah Chen stood in the command center, watching the demonstration unfold, exactly as planned. Every system was performing perfectly. Every ship was in position. Every weapon was responding to the quantum computers that coordinated the entire operation. Phase 3, she said quietly. This was the part she had been looking forward to. The part that would make it absolutely clear that humanity wasn't just another species playing at military power. Across the solar system, a new set of platforms activated. These weren't hidden in civilian equipment or disguised as mining stations. These were purpose-built weapons that existed for exactly one reason: to make it impossible for any fleet to threaten Earth. The Mackenzie Array came online. The array was named after the physicist who had figured out how to make it work. It consisted of thousands of platforms scattered throughout the solar system, each one containing a magnetic accelerator capable of launching projectiles at relativistic speeds. At 30% of light speed, a chunk of metal became more destructive than any missile or energy weapon in Council space. Initiating targeting demonstration, Sarah said. In the asteroid belt, one of the array platforms selected a target, a rock about the size of a basketball floating in space, exactly 20 light minutes away from the platform. The computer calculated the trajectory, accounting for gravity, relative motion, and the target's predicted position. Then it fired. The projectile was small, no bigger than a coin, but it was moving at 90,000 kilometers per second. In the vacuum of space, it was invisible, undetectable until the moment of impact. Exactly 40 minutes later, 20 minutes for the projectile to reach the target, 20 minutes for the light from the impact to reach the Council fleet, the target rock exploded. Not just exploded, it vaporized. The kinetic energy released was equivalent to a tactical nuclear weapon. The Council officers stared at their displays in horror. 40 minutes. That meant the projectile had been fired 20 minutes before the impact, which meant it had been flying through space, invisible and unstoppable, for 20 minutes before anyone saw it hit. Calculate the intercept time, Admiral Korex ordered. His tactical officer worked quickly. Then he looked up, his face pale. Sir, at that velocity, we would have less than 1 second of warning before impact. Our shields might deflect one, maybe two, but if they fired multiple projectiles— How many platforms are there? Korex asked, though he already knew the answer would be bad. We're detecting targeting signatures from over 3,000 platforms, sir. All of them are currently locked onto our fleet. It's not an active target lock, just a demonstration that they could lock on if they wanted to. 3,000 platforms, each one capable of firing multiple projectiles, each projectile essentially unstoppable. The Council fleet wouldn't stand a chance. They would be torn apart before they could even begin to retreat. But the demonstration wasn't over. Sarah Chen had saved the best for last. Show them the shipyards, she said. Hidden in the Kuiper Belt, far from the sun's light and far from casual observation, were the shipyards. Humanity had been building them for 30 years, ever since the first contact wars had taught them that the galaxy was dangerous. Massive construction facilities, each one capable of producing warships at a rate that would make Council admirals weep with envy. The shipyards activated their lights. Suddenly, the dark edge of the solar system blazed with industrial activity. The Council sensors picked up hundreds of ships in various stages of construction. Some were nearly complete, others were just frameworks, but all of them represented military power that the Council had never suspected Earth possessed. Estimate time to completion for the ships under construction, Corex ordered. Based on the observed progress, sir, they could have another 1,000 warships ready within 6 months. Their construction capacity it's incredible. They could build a fleet larger than our entire Galactic Council Navy within 5 years if they dedicated all their resources to it. Ambassador Thexelon was watching the demonstration from his quarters. His 4 eyes were all focused on the display, and all of them were wide with shock. This was impossible. Earth was supposed to be a minor species, barely worth the Council's attention. They were supposed to be primitives playing with technology they barely understood. Instead, they were demonstrating military capabilities that rivaled or exceeded anything in Council space. And they were doing it calmly, professionally, like this was just a routine exercise. Like revealing that they could destroy the Council fleet a dozen different ways was just another day at the office. His communicator buzzed. It was Intelligence Director Pelmoth. She didn't say, "I told you so," but Thexelon could hear it in her voice. "They've been planning this for decades," Pelmoth said. "Everything they've done since first contact was preparation for this moment. They knew eventually the Council would come. They knew we would threaten them. They knew we would underestimate them. And they prepared." "What do we do?" Thexelon asked. "We watch, we learn, and we hope they're merciful enough to let us leave." Back on the flagship, Admiral Corex was having the same thought. The demonstration had been running for 3 hours now, and the humans showed no signs of stopping. They were systematically revealing every weapon system, every ship, every defensive capability they had. It was like watching someone calmly explain exactly how they could kill you, step by step, with no emotion or anger. Finally, Sarah Chen's face appeared on the screens again. "That concludes the primary demonstration. I hope this has given you a clear understanding of Earth's defensive capabilities. We have a few additional systems to show you, if you're interested, but I thought we should pause here and see if you have any questions." Corex looked around his bridge. His officers looked shell-shocked. His tactical displays showed his fleet completely surrounded by military assets that could destroy them in seconds. His escape routes were covered. His shields were useless against relativistic projectiles. His numerical advantage meant nothing against this level of technology and coordination. He opened a communication channel to Earth. "Commander Chen, this is Admiral Corex. Your demonstration has been enlightening. I believe we need to discuss the Council's original ultimatum in light of this new information." Sarah Chen smiled. It wasn't a cruel smile or a mocking one. It was the smile of someone who had just finished explaining something important and was waiting to see if the student understood. "I think that would be wise, Admiral. Why don't you and Ambassador Thexelon come down to Earth? We can talk in person. I promise you safe passage, and you can see our planet while you're here. The tourist attractions we mentioned are actually quite beautiful." Despite everything, despite the fear and shock, and the complete reversal of everything he thought he knew, Admiral Corex found himself wanting to laugh. The humans had threatened him with their military might, demonstrated they could destroy his fleet without breaking a sweat, and were now inviting him down for tourism. "We accept your invitation," he said formally. "Excellent. Transmitting landing coordinates now. Oh, and Admiral, welcome to Earth. We really are grateful you came. You've given us the perfect opportunity to show the galaxy who we really are." As the communication ended, Lieutenant Kresh spoke up. "Sir, what just happened?" Captain Vexall answered, his voice quiet. "We came here to conquer Earth. Instead, Earth just conquered us without firing a shot, and they did it by saying, 'Thank you.'" Admiral Corex stared at the planet below, beautiful and blue and completely unthreatened by the fleet that had come to subjugate it. Somewhere down there, Commander Sarah Chen was probably preparing tea and setting out tourist brochures. "Prepare a shuttle," Corex said. "Let's go see what else these humans have to teach us." The shuttle landed at Geneva exactly on schedule. Admiral Corax and Ambassador Thexalon stepped out into Earth's afternoon sun. The air was fresh and cool, nothing like the processed atmosphere of a ship. For a moment, Corax just stood there, looking up at the sky. Somewhere up there, his fleet waited in orbit, surrounded by weapons that could destroy them. Down here, birds were singing. Two human soldiers stood at attention by the landing pad. They saluted smartly and gestured toward a building. "Commander Chen is waiting for you in the conference room. This way, please." The building was simple and functional, not the grand palace Corax might have expected. They walked through quiet hallways where humans worked at computers and talked in small groups. Nobody looked afraid. Nobody was celebrating a victory. They just looked like people doing their jobs. Like having a Galactic Council fleet in orbit was completely normal. Sarah Chen was waiting in a conference room with a view of the mountains. She stood when they entered and bowed slightly, a gesture of respect. "Admiral Corax, Ambassador Thexalon, thank you for coming. Please, sit. I've made tea." Real tea, Earth tea, which had become expensive and rare in Council space because Earth didn't export much of it. She poured 3 cups with practiced ease and sat down across from them. For a long moment, nobody spoke. They just sat there, drinking tea and looking out at the mountains. Finally, Thexalon broke the silence. "You've been planning this for a long time." 50 years, Sarah confirmed, "since the Krothi invasion taught us that the galaxy doesn't care about fairness. We learned that if you want to survive, you have to be strong enough that nobody dares attack you. But strength alone isn't enough. You also have to make sure everyone knows you're strong." "So you waited," Corax said slowly. "You waited for the Council to threaten you, knowing we eventually would. You let us think you were weak, and then you used our own ultimatum as an excuse to reveal everything." "Exactly," Sarah took a sip of tea. "If we had just announced we had this military power, it would have seemed aggressive. The Council would have felt threatened. Other species would have worried about human expansion. There would have been fear and distrust. But this way, you threatened us first. You gave us 72 days warning. You told us to prepare. We simply did exactly what you told us to do." "Clever," Thexalon admitted. His 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of respect among his people. "You turned our own threat into permission to reveal your strength." "And now everyone knows," Sarah continued. "Your fleet has been recording everything. By tomorrow, every species in the Council will have seen the demonstration. They'll know that Earth isn't a primitive species that can be controlled or conquered. We're equals, we're partners, and we're here to stay." Admiral Corax set down his teacup carefully. "What happens now? Do you plan to attack Council space? Do you want revenge for the ultimatum?" Sarah looked genuinely surprised. "Attack? Why would we attack? Admiral, we don't want war with the Council. We never did. We just want to be left alone to grow and develop on our own terms. We want to trade freely, explore peacefully, and make our own choices about our future. That's all we ever wanted." "Then why build all of this?" Corax gestured vaguely upward, toward the fleet and weapons systems orbiting above them. "Why create a military force this powerful?" "Because we've learned that in the galaxy you can't just ask for peace. You have to be strong enough that nobody tries to take it from you. The Council came here with 300 warships to force us into submission. If we were weak, we would have had no choice but to obey. But because we're strong, we can have this conversation instead. We can discuss terms as equals." Sarah pulled out a datapad and slid it across the table. "These are our proposals. Trade agreements on fair terms, mutual defense pacts, cultural exchange programs, diplomatic recognition as a sovereign power. Everything the Council would offer to any equal member species. We're not asking for special treatment. We're not demanding tribute or territory. We just want the same respect you give to everyone else." Thexalon picked up the datapad and started reading. His eyes moved quickly through the document. After a few minutes, he looked up. "These terms are reasonable. More than reasonable. You could demand much more given your obvious military advantage. We could, Sarah agreed, but that's not who we are. Humans don't want to dominate the galaxy. We want to be part of it. We want to contribute our ideas, our culture, our innovations. We want to learn from other species and share what we know. But we want to do it as equals, not as subjects. Admiral Korak stood and walked to the window. He looked out at the city of Geneva, at the humans walking peacefully in the streets below. I came here expecting to conquer a primitive species. Instead, I find a civilization that could probably conquer us if they wanted to. Yet you offer friendship instead of revenge. I don't understand you. Maybe that's the problem, Sarah said gently. The Council has been the dominant power for so long that you've forgotten what it's like to meet someone as an equal. You see every new species as either a threat to destroy or a subject to control. You don't have a framework for partnership between equals. And you think you can change that? I think we can start by changing how the Council sees Earth. Your fleet came here to threaten us. Instead, you got a demonstration that changed everything. Tomorrow, when you return to Council space and share your recordings, every species will see that humanity isn't weak. They'll see our capabilities, they'll see our strength, but they'll also see that we're offering partnership instead of using that strength to dominate others. Sarah stood and joined Corex at the window. We're setting a new precedent. We're showing the galaxy that a species can be powerful without being aggressive, that you can defend yourself without threatening others, that real security comes from mutual respect, not from forcing everyone to submit. Thexalon joined them at the window, still holding the datapad. The Council will debate these proposals for months. Many species will resist accepting Earth as an equal. They'll argue that you're too young, too inexperienced, too dangerous. Let them argue, Sarah said calmly. While they argue, we'll continue trading, exploring, and building relationships with individual species. Some will accept partnership with Earth, others will wait. Eventually, the Council will realize that we're not going anywhere and that cooperation benefits everyone more than conflict does. And if the Council refuses, if they decide you're too dangerous and must be destroyed, Sarah's expression hardened slightly. Then they'll learn the same lesson you learned today. We don't want war. We'll never start one. But we're prepared to finish one if someone forces it on us. The Mackenzie array platforms you saw, they can hit targets anywhere in this solar system with less than a second of warning, and we're building more. In 5 years, we'll be able to defend not just Earth, but all our colonies and trade routes. In 10 years, we'll have enough ships to defend our allies as well. She turned to face both visitors directly. Make no mistake, we're not bluffing. We're not exaggerating. Everything you saw today is real and operational. Earth is a power now, whether the Council wants to acknowledge it or not. The only question is whether we become partners or whether we waste resources and lives proving what we already demonstrated today. There was a long silence. Then Admiral Korak started to laugh. It was a deep, genuine laugh that surprised everyone, including himself. I came here to conquer Earth, and instead Earth is teaching me politics and making me drink tea. The universe has a strange sense of humor. Would you like to see the tourist attractions? Sarah asked with a slight smile. You came all this way. It would be a shame not to visit the Colosseum or see the Great Wall. We have excellent restaurants too. The food here is much better than ship rations. You're serious, Thexalon said, all 4 eyes wide with surprise. You actually want us to tour your planet after we came here with an invasion fleet? Why not? You're here. You're not a threat anymore. And the Council needs to see that Earth isn't just a military power. We're also a civilization worth knowing. Our art, our history, our food, our music, these things are just as important as our weapons. Maybe more important. Admiral Korex looked at Ambassador Thexalon. The ambassador's face was unreadable, but then he started laughing too. Why not? I've never been to Earth. It would be interesting to see what kind of species could plan all of this and then offer tourism packages to their would-be conquerors. They spent the next 3 days on Earth. Sarah Chen personally guided them through museums and historical sites. They ate at restaurants and walked through markets. They met human scientists, artists, and regular citizens. They watched human children playing in parks. They learned about Earth's history, its wars and peace, its struggles and triumphs. What impressed Corex the most wasn't the military power they had already seen, it was the diversity. Humans came in different colors, spoke different languages, practiced different religions, and had different cultures. Yet they had managed to unite under one government without losing their individual identities. They had taken their differences and made them into strength. On the third night, over dinner at a restaurant overlooking the Mediterranean Sea, Thexalon asked the question that had been bothering him. Why did you really thank us? Not the political reason, the real reason. Sarah was quiet for a moment, watching the sun set over the water. Because you gave us what we needed most. Permission. We could have revealed our military power at any time. But if we had done it without provocation, we would have seemed aggressive. Other species would have feared us. The Council would have had justification for preemptive action. But you threatened us first. You gave us 72 days to prepare. You told us to demonstrate our military capabilities. Everything we showed you, we did because you asked us to. How could anyone blame us for defending ourselves? So you're grateful because we gave you a legitimate reason to reveal your strength, Korek said. More than that, we're grateful because you gave us a chance to change the galaxy's perception of humanity in one decisive moment. Instead of years of diplomatic maneuvering and gradual military buildup, we got to do everything at once. Your ultimatum was the best gift you could have given us. It was the excuse we'd been waiting 50 years for. She raised her glass in a toast. So thank you, truly and genuinely, for threatening Earth. You've helped us more than you know. Corex raised his glass as well, though he felt strange about toasting his own failure. To Earth, then, and to the galaxy's newest power. To partnership, Sarah corrected, to treating each other as equals, to building something better than what came before. They clinked glasses and drank. Outside, the stars began to appear in the darkening sky. Somewhere up there, the Council fleet waited, no longer a threat, but not yet a friend. That would take time. But time was something Earth had plenty of now. The next morning, Admiral Corex and Ambassador Thexalon returned to their fleet. They brought with them the datapad full of proposals, hundreds of hours of recordings, and memories of 3 days on a world unlike any they had visited before. As their shuttle lifted off, Sarah Chen stood on the landing pad and watched them go. General Williams joined her, 2 cups of coffee in his hands. He gave her one, and they stood together in comfortable silence. Think they'll accept the proposals? Williams asked. Eventually, not right away. They'll debate and argue and try to find ways to maintain their superiority. But in the end, they'll accept, because the alternative is worse for everyone. And if they don't, Sarah took a sip of coffee, then we'll keep building, keep growing, keep being exactly who we are. Eventually, they'll realize that partnership is better than conflict. Or they won't, and they'll become irrelevant while we build relationships with species who understand mutual respect. You really did plan this perfectly. Not perfectly, we got lucky. They sent exactly the kind of threat we needed at exactly the right time. If they had come earlier, before we were ready, or later, after we had already revealed ourselves, it wouldn't have worked as well. But sometimes, luck favors the prepared. She finished her coffee and turned to go back inside. Come on, we have work to do. The galaxy knows about us now. That means we have to live up to the reputation we just built. No pressure. General Williams laughed and followed her. Behind them, Earth continued its peaceful rotation, just as it had for billions of years. But now, for the first time, the galaxy knew that Earth was nobody's subject. The age of human submission had ended before it began, stopped by a polite thank you note and 3 days of demonstrations. In orbit, the Council fleet began preparing for the journey home. Admiral Korex looked back at the planet one last time before giving the order to jump. Beautiful, peaceful, deadly, and somehow, despite everything, hospitable. Set course for Council space, he ordered, and prepare a message for the Council. Tell them Earth is not a threat to be eliminated. They're a power to be respected. And tell them I recommend accepting their proposals. Because if we don't, some other species will, and the Council will lose the opportunity to partner with the galaxy's most interesting civilization. The fleet jumped, leaving Earth's solar system behind. But the recordings remained. The demonstrations had been captured in perfect detail. And those recordings would spread across the galaxy faster than any ship could travel, carried by communication relays and quantum entanglement arrays. By the end of the week, every species in Council space knew about Earth. They knew about the ships, the weapons, the strength, and the restraint. They knew that humanity had turned a threat into an opportunity and had done it by saying, "Thank you." Some species would fear them. Others would seek alliance. Many would try to understand them. But all of them would respect them. And that respect, more than any weapon or fleet, was what would keep Earth safe in a dangerous galaxy. Sarah Chen sat in her office and watched the news reports coming in from across the stars. The galaxy was talking about Earth, arguing about Earth, analyzing every detail of the demonstration. It was working exactly as she hoped. Her phone rang. It was the President of Earth's United Government. "Congratulations, Commander. You've made humanity impossible to ignore." "That was the goal, sir. What happens now?" Sarah smiled and looked up at the stars through her office window. Now we see if the galaxy is ready for a species that believes in strength without aggression, defense without domination, and partnership between equals. Now we find out if we can change the rules of galactic politics just by refusing to follow the old ones. And if we can't, then we'll make our own rules and invite everyone else to join us. Either way, Earth's future is ours to decide, nobody else's, and that's what we fought for. She hung up and returned to work. Outside, Earth continued spinning. Above, the stars shone bright, and somewhere out there, in the vast darkness of space, the galaxy was learning a new lesson. Sometimes the best way to win a war is to say thank you.